Welcome, this is Kim from 3 Olives Ranch. We are making some fruit scones today. I'm working on a few different flavors, but ultimately these are the instructions and steps for how to make these amazing and delicious cherry scones. So I have a lot of fruit on hand, and so I'm working on, again, a few different flavors. So you'll see some different variations as we go along here, but ultimately this is all the same process and the same concept. So let's see how this works. So first thing we're going to do is get our food processor going. Ignore the flour situation because I was already working on another flavor that you'll see here in a minute. So first up, we need to get some flour in here. We're going to start with 2 cups of flour, and you don't have to use a food processor, but I do find that it makes life incredibly easy, honestly, for a lot of different things. So definitely recommend that you get one if you don't have one already, especially when it comes to baking. It's amazing how convenient it is. So I'll put a link to some of my favorite ones down in the comments there. But this one is a beast, honestly. I got this one recently from my mom. So we have our 2 cups of flour in there. And next up, we're gonna do 3 tablespoons of regular white granulated sugar. And this will not only bring a little bit of sweetness in addition to the fruit, but also some color. And then we need a tablespoon of baking powder. So it might seem like a lot, but we need a lot of lift in these scones because they're gonna be pretty dense and heavy. Next up is a little bit of salt. Salt always in baking, if you don't do it, you should. It really just balances, again, out all of the sweetness. It won't taste salty at all. So those are our main ingredients, and now we are just going to get our lid on our food processor here. Try not to. All right. And we're just gonna pulse it a few times. We're just trying to mix it. All right, that's good. So I'll open that up. Now we need some butter. So it's warm here. I had to go get my butter out of my fridge. Really important that the butter is warm. The reason being that it's going to not mash itself up so much, and it'll give you a really great texture to the scones itself. So we're doing 5 tablespoons of butter, and I just cut them into the tablespoon size pieces, just like that. And just toss them anywhere into the flour that's in here. It really doesn't matter. Oops. Where they are, just you don't want them to be one giant blob is all. All right, now lid goes back on, and we are going to process this again about 10 times. All right, that should be about good. You can see my little family cookie jar over there in the corner. He's cute, huh? It's for my mom. Family cookie jar. Okay, so now this is what you want it to look like. It's going to be kind of like sand. So when you feel it, you're going to feel like these itty bitty little pieces of butter in here, almost like little pebbles or like a wet sand. It should feel a little bit wet when your hand is in there, and that's exactly what we want. So we are done with the food processor. So we're going to take this off, get this guy out of the way. Now we need our bowl. Recenter here. All right, so we have our bowl, and we're going to dump in that flour mixture. And now that we're using the cold butter, we've got to make sure that we don't stop at this point in time. If you do, get it back in the fridge. You don't want the butter melting. Get everything out. All right, I got that. And now we just need a few final ingredients. There's really not too much else that needs to go in here. So we're gonna add the blueberries, of course. This is 2 cups of blueberries. So I know we said we're doing cherry at the beginning, so you would do 2 cups of cherries. You're gonna see chocolate chip in a minute, which I actually use just a bag of chocolate chips, so it's about 1.5 cups or so. But roughly with fruit, you wanna do about 2 cups once it's diced or cut up. And then we need a cup of cream. And yes, it's cream, but it's really good for the scones. It's much better than the milk versions, so you're really going to enjoy the richness that it brings. And with 1 cup across 8 scones, it's not too bad. So we're gonna dump that in there. And that is all you need for the dough. So we're just gonna mix this up here. And it's gonna feel almost sticky, but still dry at the same time, which I know sounds strange, but it'll look dry, not like a batter, but then when you touch it, it'll feel wet. And we just wanna barely mix this until we get most of this incorporated. About there, that's good. And you can use frozen blueberries or any frozen berry. I like to make mixed berry actually. It's delicious. One thing you'll want to do though is let them thaw because they'll have so much moisture. The moisture that goes into them will end up affecting the scones negatively. So just let them thaw, drain off that extra moisture and then put them in. Also with frozen berries, because of that moisture, you're going to get streak colors in your dough, which I think is pretty, but if you don't want that, you either need to dry them off or use fresh berries, honestly. So this is ready to go. This is my trick for how I make scones, and when I learned this, it was life-changing, honestly, which sounds dramatic, but it was. Like a scone dough, again, can be really sticky and difficult to work with because you don't want to overmix it. So my trick is using these little round cake pans. Just spray this with a nonstick spray, which I've already done. And then all I have to do is dump this into the pan here. Now the top of the scones are the bottom of this pan. And so I'll put in like some extra berries just because I know that I want some berries on top so they look super cute and pretty when we cut them, just like that. And then we're going to put all of this mixture, let's see if I can get it in here real quick, into the pan. Get a spoon. You can see how sticky it is on the sides of this bowl. All right, there you go. And now you just want to gently but firmly, which I know sounds contradictory, but push all of this dough into here. And you can see I just got a sticky piece, so just like flip it over, find a way to get it to stick. And we're just gonna go all the way around, try to make it generally level as much as you can. Ooh, there's a wet spot right there. And just keep going until you have a relatively flat, relatively even disc. It's so much easier. You won't, if you've ever made scones without doing something like this, you know what I'm talking about with how difficult it can be. It's just crazy how much better this is. Just trying to level out this part over here. All right, so at this point you could continue and not chill, but I really recommend chilling it right now. So we're going to put this in the fridge. I have a different flavor that I mentioned. It's ready to go, so I'm gonna grab that guy. All right, here is chocolate chip scones. So this one will be available on the blog here in a little bit, but this is once it's been freeze or chilling in the fridge, and it's much firmer now. It's not goopy. You can leave this in for longer than 30 minutes. If you do even a few hours or overnight, you'll want to cover it to make sure that it does not get like that dry, crackly skin on top, because that'll affect the outcome of the scones at the end. So now that we have this ready to go, we want to get ready to bake these. We are just going to simply flip this out. So you're going to first get your surface ready to go. I like to just use my counter. This is my new pretty counter. Just got it a few months ago. So get some flour down just to help with the sticking factor. You're gonna flip this over. And at this point, it's kind of stuck in there even though we sprayed it. So you want to do a heavy, firm tap, almost like a slam, onto the counter, just like this. Oop, and it didn't go, so we're gonna try it again. There we go, I can feel it. Ta-da. See, much easier than trying to do this by hand and dealing with all the sticky factor. All right, next up, we're going to take a knife and just cut this into 8 wedges. You could do smaller or larger if you'd like, but 8's a really, really good size for the scone. I've got some big chocolate chips in here. So you can see it's crumbling just a little bit, which doesn't happen if it's softer like fruit. So if you're doing the cherry or blueberry, that won't happen. And this is how I try to make sure that they are relatively even. So think like you're cutting a pizza. Get into those fourths, repress that. And then take each of these corners. There we go. It does stick a little bit if you're using the counter. You can also use a cutting board. Whoops. That one fell apart. That happens. We'll just press that back and they'll be good to go. All right, so after you cut all of these wedges out, all you have to do is lift them up like this and they'll come out. And you'll place these on a baking sheet. Again, if this happens, it just means there's a dry spot in the dough where you're pressing it together. So you can just repress it and or even put just a touch of water or something to make it a little bit sticky and then repress it again. It'll be totally fine. One little touch I like to do, not necessary, but I think it looks and tastes amazing, is brush the scones with a couple tablespoons of melted butter, like that. And then take a little bit of extra sugar, about a tablespoon or so, and go across the scones and sprinkle it on. It's gonna help not only with the color between both the sugar and the butter when it bakes, but you'll also get that little bit of a crunchy texture when you bite into it. So these, since they're chilled, can go straight into the oven. 450 for about 14 minutes or so, rotating halfway through. Go further if you like, if you wanted a darker color. They can actually be frozen. I will, at this stage, when they're cut up, freeze them like this, separate them first, and then freeze them on a baking sheet, throw them in a big Ziploc bag, and then whenever you want just one scone or two, you can toss them in the oven, exact same process. So 450, about 15 minutes or so. Might take a couple minutes longer since they are frozen, but it works beautifully. So great way to use up any ingredients like butter or cream that you might have on hand, or even the fruit, and have scones ready to go whenever you want. And then once you get them out of the oven, they will look like this. So again, these are the cherry scones. You can see that the really dark, rich colors here, and these sharp edges are from us having chilled that dough. So they do poof up more and spread out more if you don't chill it. So if you care, just be aware. You can always freeze them again, as I said. And when you cut in, you can see all of those beautiful layers of the dough and also all of those cherries that we've cut through. So that's it. It's really quite simple. Make sure you use the little hacks, like using that cake pan makes a big, big difference. And just go through all the different fruits that you have on hand, make different scones, and you'll be set for the rest of the year with fresh berry scones. And that's all. I'll put the links to everything down in the chat section at the bottom, and as well as for the instructions for each of these different flavors as it's available. But again, pretty consistent across most of them, unless you're doing something like an oatmeal scone. Thanks for watching.